I am aware that many of you know me, but I'm also aware that there's some faces here that have never met me, and so just excuse me while I take a couple of minutes to introduce myself, and so you know who's the guru. I'm not a guru. Who's the guy, talking to us here? So my name's David Balestri. I have a couple of roles as far as Hope UC is concerned, the church that we're in. I'm the business manager of the church. I take care of all the finances and all the financial management of the church. We're a church, a fairly large church, that across the Central Coast and into Newcastle. We'll have 6 campuses and a couple of thousand people that call Hope UC home. My responsibility is the business management and financial management of the organisation. I also am an elder in the church, so I lead in that space alongside my senior pastors, Pastors Mark and Darlene. And staying in the church, I also run, you'll see the banners here and up the front there, called what we call the Hope UC Centre of Excellence. Hope UC Centre of Excellence is a training school built purely for believers in the marketplace. So there's only 2 courses that you can do in the Centre of Excellence. One is called Kingdom Business. The other one is called Workplace Leaders. You can't do a course to become a preacher. You can't do a course to become a worship leader. Thank God I'm not doing that course. You can't do any course that is, as it were, church-centric or Sunday-centric. You can only do courses that equip the believer for the marketplace. And so that course has been a passion of mine and Pastor Mark. It is a media-based, it's online, you can do both an on-demand, which means you can do it at your own leisure, or there's also a live component where you watch the videos and then we do some Mastermind Zoom sessions together. We're about to start a semester in March, and if you want to know some more details about that, there's some flyers on your table there, so you can have a look at that. I've got some people here that have done it, and I think we're in this will be year number 3 of this iteration of that course. So that's one side of my world. The other side of my world is I'm a business owner, business person, so I'm in the beauty industry, obviously, and a beauty salon with my daughter, and she does a great job with that. And my main business is I run a consultancy company called Elite Human Development. I coach and mentor Christian entrepreneurs, CEOs, all around the world these days. Actually, I was saying earlier on that half of my clients are overseas, Eastern Europe, believe it or not, Budapest, Hungary, Poland, Netherlands, Portugal, some great places there, and that's just been a joy and a delight across all industries. Some of them are in the building industry. One of them is an art dealer in Europe. One owns agriculture companies, and all from all sort of walks of life, and so clients here in Australia and abroad. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm a kidpreneur. Started my first business when I was 10, and I think I'm up to business number 13 as we speak. I'm 50 this year. Can you believe that? 50, yeah, absolutely. I made it. I'm almost as grown up as Peter, as Ziggy. So, in this session, before we'll do some more Q&A at the end of it. But as I was praying into this time, I want to just share with you the thought behind these 2-day events. So we do 3 of these a year. We do this one at the start of the year, which we call Business Toolbox, which the intention of that is to really speak into practical dimensions that you would be touching in life and in business, right? So we're obviously talking about finances, money, wealth creation, prosperity in this one. And the idea is that these February March sessions will always be a very practical dimension of your business. Then in the middle of the year, we do what we call Supernatural Business Retreat, which is 2 days here again. And usually at that one, that's really more about laying our lives down afresh, committing ourselves afresh, committing our businesses, our purpose, our destiny, really having an encounter, 2 days of encounter with the Lord. I usually bring more prophets, prophetic type ministers into that space. This year, I could probably say it now, I've got a lady called Roma Waterman. She's going to come up from Melbourne. She's great prophetic ministry there. And we're going to have some of our team as well. It's one of the other things I lead in the church, the prophetic company. And the idea with the one in the middle of the year is that every person that comes, if you would like to, across the 2 days, we're actually going to create some private rooms, and you're going to have the opportunity to spend some time with some of our prophetic team, and they're going to, if you'd like, pray for you, minister to you, and you can record that, and it'll be, just an input. Think of it as spiritual intelligence for you. And then at the end of towards the end of the year and around October, we do what we call a mastermind. And that's usually where I bring some sort of a mindset trainer. Last year we had, for some of you were here, we had Simone Leslie, who's a neuro trainer. She was amazing, right? Just mindset, self-limiting beliefs, just opening that whole realm. What I found is over the last 15 years of coaching and mentoring CEOs, business owners and business leaders at all levels of evolution, as it were, of their lives, that those three components, those three are the big three circles that most of the time, most of the questions and the challenges deal with, right? And that we're into. So that's the method behind the madness of the 2-day event. So hopefully you can, we'd love to see you in the middle of the year. I'd like to just take this session and really talk to you about, in my consultancy practices, I'm a business consultant, but I really began and cut my teeth the first number of years as a life coach. And I found that business and life coaching, actually there's a lot of similarities, and then there are some peculiarities in the midst of it. But what I found after now, thousands of hours of working alongside men and women from all walks of life, and also, by the way, faith and non-faith backgrounds, I just found that there were, I'm going to call them 5 foundations of life and understanding that if you embrace them, if somehow these are incorporated into your world, this thought of flourishing becomes, I don't want to say automatic, because it's not quite like that, but the foundation in which you can scale is solid, right? And when these foundations are missing, the money hurts you, or the success hurts you, or the influence hurts you, because you can't sustain it. It's out of order. And a couple of years ago, I had a dream. So let me tell you about a dream that I had. And I'm not someone that wakes up every morning and I've had some sort of an amazing dream and it's this big sort of dancing with the angels or anything like that. But from time to time, I've been aware that I'll wake up from an evening or wake up in the middle of a dream, and I know that somehow this is more than just, the brain chemistry working, that somehow there's a communication flow going on. And so I'll tell you the dream, and then I'll tell you what I believe it was about. So I think I just started doing some of these things, and so I had this dream, and I was in this hotel lobby, beautiful, very opulent hotel, and in the dream, I was walking towards the elevator, and I pressed the button, waiting for the elevator. When the doors of the elevator opened, it seemed like the largest elevator in the world. Like there wasn't like 6 people in there. Have you ever had a look when you get into an elevator and it says maximum 13 people, and there's like 4 of you, and there's no room to move, and you think, is that 13 midgets, or what's going on? But as the elevator opened, in the dream, there was literally hundreds of people in the elevator, and it was like a rave. Like people were just excited. They were happy. I was thinking, why is everyone happy to be in an elevator? It's usually, so they were happy, and it's like, oh wow. I was like, oh, this is amazing. So as I stepped in the elevator, I pressed the button, And as I pressed the button, what happened was the elevator started, rather than I thought we were going to go up, rather than go up, it started going down and going down really quickly. And all of a sudden, talk about a buzzkill, all of a sudden that party atmosphere, everyone sort of, I could just feel the daggers. Like this guy, no, we want to go up. Somehow there must have been a party going on upstairs. And this guy's pressed down, and now everybody's upset that I'm in the elevator, right? And so it's that awkward moment, and you're just begging God, please, get us to where we're getting, Finally, the elevator stops and opens up, and I'm the only person that gets off the elevator. And I can feel like a sigh of relief. Everyone's happy that this guy's off, and it closes. And as I look around, I realize I'm not, where I am is like I'm in the substructures of this glorious hotel. And it's like a car park, but it's empty. And there are big pylons, that are holding up. They're obviously the foundation pillars of this great, magnificent room. And then all of a sudden, the dream stops. So I wake up from that dream, and I recognize that that's more than just pepperoni pizza. There's something in play here, and it's almost like I feel like there's this moment that God wants to speak to me, and so I'm like, God, what's going on here, And I feel like, here's what I feel like the Lord said to me. I feel like the Lord said to me, Dave, I'm going to utilize you and your ministry to help people really break through and come into great measures of prosperity and success and business realities. And he said to me, people are going to be excited about that, right? But part of the way that you're going to do that is you're going to help people reset accurate foundations. Because many people are, here's the revelation I felt like. I felt like many people are asking for the blessing of the Lord, but as a good father, right, their foundations are not set right. And as a result of it, it's actually his benevolence to hold back prosperity or hold back success, whatever that means to you, until the foundations are being set. My youngest son, when he was about 13, I went and bought this little sports car, a little black sports car, and he came to me one day, he's 13, he says to me, Dad, he says, make sure you take care of my vehicle. And I said, your vehicle? What are you talking about? He goes, the Merc, that's my inheritance, right? Like, I said to him, dude, you haven't even got your L plates. You're already claiming the car. I mean, I liked it. I got to tell you, I liked his ambition about that. But I thought, imagine if I would have said, hey, son, no problem. Here's the car now. Like, does anybody here, would I have gotten the Father of the Year award from you? No way. You would have gone, that's crazy. This kid's going to kill himself in that car because he's not ready, right? There are some foundational dimensions that are not in him. And so that, what would seem as all his buddies would have thought it was prosperity, but actually it would have hurt him. And I think that sometimes, when we're saying, God, would you expand my career? Would you expand my business? Would you expand, God, we're going to take this thing from 5 million to 10 million or from 20 million to 100 million. And, I got to tell you that a nightmare is if you're operating a business at $1 million a year and somehow you break into 10 million a year, but your foundations and your mindset is still at $1 million a year, that's not a blessing to you. That is pressure that will crush you. Like pressure that will crush you all the time. And so the deal is this thing about, okay, well, how do we build strong foundations? Well, let me just give you a couple of this throwaway line. Firstly, around, let's just come back to this thing about finance and money. Do you know that the New Testament contains 10 times more verses and scriptures that speak about money and stewardship than it does about faith or salvation? Do you know that? Here's the stat. The stat is, in the New Testament, there are 215 verses that speak around faith. 215, right? in the New Testament, there are 218 verses that speak about salvation. That's pretty good, right? 215, 218. In the New Testament, there are 2,084 verses that speak about stewardship, accountability, money, and finances. Think about it, 10 times. Now here's the question that comes out of that. It's like, is God, who's Jesus, why does he care so much about money? Well, he actually doesn't care about money per se. Here's what he cares about. In Matthew 6:21, it says this. This is Jesus talking. He says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." It's not the money, it's your heart. It's the understanding in our humanity that resource, finance, wealth, all the rest, that is not an unemotional or an undetached thing in any one of our lives. That actually, right in the midst of money, resource, all the rest, our hearts are right there in the midst of it. And it becomes the warfare and the challenge that is a big wrestle, because it's the wrestle of who rules your heart, right? And so if we can get the success and the prosperity and the finance thing, if we can get it into right order so that it never dominates the affections of our hearts before God, right? Then all of a sudden, we've got something to work with. Now, in my next session, which I think will be an interesting one, I'm going to talk about, not in this session, in the next session, I'm going to talk about the spirit of mammon. I'm going to talk about tithing, new covenant tithing, and I'm going to talk about new covenant sowing and reaping. And some of you are going to like that, some of you aren't going to like that, but we'll have a discussion about it, and I want to do that. But in this session, what I want to do is I want to talk about these things which I call the foundations. And here's the thought. The thought is that if you're going to prosper in a godly, spiritual, dynamic way, there are some foundations that you must have in play in your life, right? And it doesn't matter whether this morning you're here and you're going, hey, my current manifestation of life is I earn a wage and I'm working for a company, or whether you're here and you're running a multi-million-dollar enterprise with lots of responsibility. These foundations are key, and unless you have these foundations in play, the prosperity and success and influence and all the rest is always going to be a battle for you. You're going to find an inconsistency around it. So let me give you the first foundation that all of us, irrespective of who you are in this room today, needs to have, which is the first foundation is that you must have a deepening intimacy with God. Yes? Sorry. You must have a deepening intimacy with God in operation in this season of your life. Now, it doesn't matter whether you in your spirituality, whether you're new to faith or whether you've been in faith for decades. This thought of the first foundation is that you must have a deepening intimacy with God. You cannot build holistic wealth, right? Holistic wealth, unless God is number one. And the only way that God can be number one is you must have a deepening relationally, a deepening intimacy with Him, right? Intimacy, the word intimacy means into me you see. All right? So intimacy comes from allowing, God already sees in you, but you seeing in God, right? And so it's not this casual relationship. It's one of the things that I find, particularly, I'm going to say to you, business people, and particularly business people who say to me, I'm just struggling for time, or and I understand that, or I feel flat in my faith, And I usually ask them, how's your intimacy with God? And they're like, oh no, I read the Bible. I said, that's not what I asked you. Oh, I say my prayers. That's not what I asked you, right? Because I've been through seasons where I read my Bible and prayed every day, and yet wasn't in deep intimacy with God. I was just following a religious pattern. The moment that I'm not against Bible reading, by the way. Gee, the pastor's telling you not to read your Bible, or against praying. Let me just qualify this. But the problem is, if you do those things and your heart is disconnected from that, you're not in intimacy, you're just in religious practice, right? It's a bit like, many of us, when we come into a church service, if in worship, if you sing the songs, but your heart is not connected, you're just practicing Christian karaoke. It's just Christian karaoke, right? And this is the same thing. If you're a business owner and think about this, you use the busyness of your life or the blessings of the Lord as far as success as an excuse to allow your heart to drift from intimacy with Christ, like that's not a good moment, right? It's not a great place to be. Deepening intimacy with Christ will deliver you from anxiety, right? Will deliver you from many of the things that we would suffer, fear, all of that sort of stuff. Like deepening intimacy with Christ, looking into the eyes of Jesus, letting Jesus look into your eyes, whatever that looks like, right? Whatever that looks like. I remember I've only been as far as somewhat employed in church life for about 10 years. So what that means is the majority of my Christian walk, I've been a business person in the church. And I remember many times being in a conference or something and some pastor would talk about how, they spent 4 hours with the Lord 3 days a week, and I'd be like, yeah, but you get paid to do that. Like I gotta go take care of customers as well. Like, and what am I going to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning so I can have my 4 hours with Jesus? Yeah, everybody knows how that's going to work, right? The moment I close my eyes to pray, I'm out. There's no prayer, there's snoring. That's not going to happen. So what does intimacy look like, and what does the pattern of intimacy? You've got to make it fit your season, right? When I was working in corporate life, I was working like 90 hours a week. I'm not doing 3 hours a day with Jesus. I'm praying in the shower, right? I'm worshiping in the car, and I'm trying to practice the presence of God as I'm in and out of boardrooms and in and out of project meetings and as I'm walking down the corridor of the company's office. That's how that looked in that season. It looks very different today, because the nature of my work and my consultancy affords me now the opportunity to do deep dives and that sort of thing. Deepening intimacy with Christ, right? It's the first foundation. Here's the second foundation. I'll just write it as one word: alignment. And what I mean, I'll write it two words: alignment to your assignment, right? Now, if I went around the room here and I asked you, what do you do? And, so we've got lawyers, builders, developers, we've got investors, we've got people that work in all these different industries right across the room. So that's what you do. But what is your, and Peter touched on it towards the end of his message here, what's your purpose? What's the assignment that's actually attached to your life? Now, here's the great challenge around assignment. Assignment isn't just what you're passionate about. When people talk about assignment, but they divorce it from spirituality, then assignment is more about just what makes you happy or what inspires you, which is good but incomplete. I actually don't believe that you can know or engage the fullness of your assignment it's separated from your spiritual life. I actually believe that your assignment isn't something you pick, it's something God picked for you. Right? Like there's a difference there, right? In one of the Psalms it talks about God, and it says, "Fearfully and wonderfully am I made, you knit me together." This is the psalmist singing this song of just revelation about God. He says, "God, you saw me in my mother's womb and you knit me together." It says you knit the intricate parts about me, right? And then it says, all the days ordained for me, or all the days written for me, ordained for me, predestined for me, were written in your book before one of them came to be. That's called destiny. What that means is no one's born an accident. No one's born without purpose. And we're all born actually with great, powerful purpose that was designed by a benevolent, loving God. That's good news, right? Like I think about this a lot because I think about, man, I mean, the Bible says God's a good father. I mean, much better than we are. If I had an opportunity, if I had a magic book and anything I wrote in that book would be the destiny of my children, I wouldn't write a small story. I want you to hear this. I wouldn't write a small story. I would write the biggest story that knowing my children, that matches them perfectly, right? Matches their personality, matches, just who I know they are. I would write a grand adventure for them. Well, I absolutely believe that God has written a grand adventure for each and every one of us. And that grand adventure was written before you took your first breath. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. So then the wonderful journey of life is discovering the great story that the great big God, loving Father has written for your life. That's something to get excited about, right? That's something to get excited about. Now, here's the thing. Your story, this is why I'm not in competition with anyone else in the world, because my story is just not your story. So so we can't compete about, because my story is perfectly fit for me. So I'm not in actually competition. The only person I'm in competition with is the person I was yesterday, right? And my ability to come into alignment with that assignment. Once this alignment to my assignment, like what is the assignment of my life? So I know that part of the assignment of my life is to equip and raise up Christian business men and women in both business and the marketplace, in their workplaces, so that they can flourish into the fullness of the expression of their lives that brings glory to God. I know that that's my assignment. So whether it's in my beauty business or whether it's in my investment business or whether it's in my consultancy company, actually, that's the things that I do, but this is the assignment that I'm on. It's very important. It's the assignment I'm on. It takes, again, I'm not in competition with anyone because no one else has my assignment and no one else has your assignment. But it's important to figure or to find what this is. I remember my oldest son, when he was 10, this is when he was 10, he said, Dad, I've heard you speak about destiny to people. He would listen in as I was having coffee with people and he was really attuned. And he said, you speak about destiny and assignment a lot. And he said, Dad, you're a prophet. Just tell me what mine is, like he's 10. He's like, just tell me what mine is and I'll do it, And I said to him, Al, listen, buddy. I said, there's something about you wrestling this from the hand of God for yourself. I said, because if I tell you, then someone else can talk you out of it. But if God tells you, right, then no one can talk you out of it. You heard that from God, not from some person that's just, nice to be with. All right. Number 3, this is an interesting one. These are foundations, right? Deepening intimacy with God, alignment to assignment. Here's the next one. Oh, spell it right, Dave. Holiness, right? Holiness. This is a foundation. But I want to define this word maybe in a manner that you haven't heard before, or maybe you have, but let me just say it. Usually when we hear words like holiness or holy, particularly in the church, we think about a list. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't run around with people that do, that sort of stuff, like the good and the bad list. But I want to tell you that actually holiness in the Bible does not, the word itself, its root, is not linked to a list of do's and don'ts. Holiness in the Bible means, listen to this, in its root form, means accurate representation. Right? Means accurate representation. So when the Bible invites us or speaks to us, when Scripture speaks to us to be holy, what it's saying, what Scripture is encouraging us to do, it's saying this: accurately represent the Father in all things. Accurately represent the love of God in your interactions with people. That's being holy. Accurately represent the grace of God in spaces. That's being holy. So holiness is about accuracy of representation of the Father. That's what it is, right? Holiness isn't about don't do this, do this, right? It's not about do women wear trousers or not? It's got nothing to do with that. Holiness is accurate representation of the Father. When I'm in the boardroom, I think I might have said this once before. I remember I was called up to go and do a presentation in the boardroom, and these days I don't get intimidated often anymore. But this was a big moment. It was a stretch moment, right? We've all been there. It was a stretch moment for me. And, I had this moment in the elevator thinking, well, why is it I always do things in the elevator? I had this thought in the elevator thinking, oh man, who am I to speak to these people? They were big hitters, right? Like, it was political people, all that. And they wanted me to speak to them. And just as I'm having this sort of moment, I felt God speak to me, and he said, hey, this isn't about you. This is about me. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you have no right to be intimidated about this moment, because the people that you're about to go and engage are about to meet me with your face on me. You hear that? They're about to meet me with your face on me. I was like, wow, that's holiness. They're about to, yes, the clay vessel, but that's not the main deal that they're about to encounter. They're about to encounter a vessel that carries the goodness and the glory and the mind and the heart of God. And so the things that I'm going to say, I'm holy in holiness, right? Accurate representation, which I love that. And none of us, by the way, here's the interesting thing about that, because that's why holiness can never be something about your best effort. It has to be a work of the Spirit of God in your life, because only God can make you holy. Only the Spirit of God can help you represent Him accurately. Right? So when I'm walking into a space, when you're walking into a room, you're not just walking in with your wisdom, you're walking in with the capacity to download the wisdom of God. I call that spiritual intelligence, right? Do you remember, Matt Hope's here, do you remember, Matty, a couple of years ago, we were up at Erina, and we were dealing with some developers there, talking about a deal, and we're just trying to be cool about it and all the rest. And this guy, Tim was his name, he says, somebody dobbed me in, because, we went there as sort of business people, and he said, hey, Dave, he says, I heard that you know things about people. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, you know things about people that, no one's told you. He's trying to say, I heard that you're prophetic, but he doesn't have the language for it, right? This guy's not a believer. And I said to him, oh, yeah, I'm trying to be coy. I'm thinking, where's he going here? And he goes, yeah, and his wife was with him, and he says, well, tell me something about me that you don't know, that I've never told you, that, so I'm thinking, I'm praying on the inside going, God, help me not stuff this up. And so I start saying some things. I think I said something like, hey, you're actually very creative in your wiring. You come across as a sort of a wheeler-dealer businessman, but you actually have a soft heart. And his wife's going, yeah, that's you, they're tapping him. And he says, yeah, but he's met me a couple of times. And he says, what if I bring one of the office staff in? Can you tell me about them? And, I like poker face. I'm like, yeah, sure. Now, inside, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, oh, man, where are we going to go with this? So he calls, he says, hey, can you come? And this lady comes and stands at the door. She's like, yeah, she's thinking, oh, yeah, okay, well, what do you need? Do you guys need coffee? Like, what do you need here? And he says, tell me about her. And she's like, what? And anyway, so I start saying about who she is and how she works and all this. And she's like confused. She's waiting for the coffee order, and I'm telling who she is. And she's like, what? She says, have you guys been talking about me? Like, what's going on? Like, have you guys been talking about me? And he's laughing. He's like, no, it's all good. Hey, thanks. And like, I remember Matt and I got downstairs, and I think at that point I wanted to cry. It was almost like the adrenaline had gone. But it was this thought about I was like, why did I say yes? Like, why did I kind of, when he kept on going, can you do this? Why did I keep on saying, the reason I kept on saying yes, because I thought to myself, I'm not representing me, right? So I just got to back that God's going to back me and him. Think about that the next time you're about to walk into a big moment in your business or a difficult conversation with a staff member or a boss, or God is going to back himself in you. He's committed to that. So whether I stuff it up or not, I mean, I'm fallible. Again, if I'd blown it, I'd said, oh, look, I'm sorry, I didn't have a good coffee this morning. It's like I missed it. But God is always willing to back himself in you. That's what holiness is, right? So it's a little bit of a different take. All right, number 4. Foundations, right? Deepening intimacy with Christ, alignment to the assignment, holiness. The 4th one is a passion to know God's voice. You're going, are you talking about business? And I absolutely am here. These are the foundations of business and success in life as a believer or as someone that is spiritually attuned. Passion to know the voice of God. Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice, right? Like a lot of the time we complicate the voice of God. We make it this ethereal thing, or we segregate it and we say, oh, that's for the special people that kind of, the professionals, as it were. But you got to know that God is a speaking God, right? The Genesis to Revelation testify that God is speaking all the time. Genesis 1, God starts speaking. I mean, Ziggy, I think he speaks more than you and I do. That's, like God is speaking. By the time he ends Revelation, he's still speaking. I find that somewhat amusing that people would use the Bible that is about the testimony of the speakings of God, to say that God no longer speaks. Doesn't that sound kind of weird? Can you imagine what confidence you would have as you attune your life to discern the voice of God? Now, not every thought in your head is the voice of God, by the way, right? There's your own voice. There's the voice of life, and let's call it the enemy. And then there's the voice of God. And I've just found that there's some handles. People say to me, well, Dave, how do you know which one's which? I know it's the voice of God when what I'm hearing is kinder than how I think. Right? God is a lot kinder than about myself or about other people than I am. I'm not as kind as God is. So usually when I'm hearing something that is much kinder than who I am, I know it's the voice of God. The second way I know it's the voice of God is when I either hear myself think something or say something that is smarter than who I am. I don't know if you've ever been, I'm sure you've been in that space where you've said something and the person receiving it goes, oh, that's amazing, that's so profound, and you realize that you've never had that thought before, never said that before until that moment, right? And you're like, oh, yeah. Act as if like, oh, yeah, I've got that tattooed on my arm. It's like, no. Yeah, you didn't know that before you spoke it. That's literally, you're in sync with the voice of God in that space. I think one of the other handles of the voice of God is that when I'm hearing the voice of God, it comes with unshakable peace. It brings unshakable peace into my world. Like I might be troubled, and when I hear, maybe someone speaks to me, or I hear it come from within me, there's peace attached to it. And it's like, oh wow, I didn't have that peace before that thing was said or before that thought came forward. That would be another way to discern the voice of God. It's kinder, it's smarter, it comes with peace. The fourth thing is this: whenever the voice of God comes through you or to you, it brings faith that you didn't have into the moment, right? Like it's Peter, come now, right? Like come on the water now. It's that it brings faith, not just excitement. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I get excited about every opportunity, and even if there's not an opportunity, I'm excited because there's the possibility of an opportunity. So I understand, I don't live my life on adrenaline, But there is just something about when you know you've heard the wisdom of God or the voice of God, there's a faith that rises within you that you just at that point know, I'm going to walk through a wall, like I'm going to walk on the water. This thing's done. This thing's paid. This contract is settled. The breakthrough's here. Like before, the faith wasn't there. Now it is. Now it's here, right? Like how many times have you seen that? Have you done that? Yeah, Prince and I have talked about this before. You know, when he gets into that zone, he really operates in a gift of faith. When he gets into that zone, you can't, like at that point, you can't stop him. You know, you're unstoppable, and that's the voice of God. I mean, how many want the voice of God, right? Now, here's the fifth one, the fifth foundation. So, deepening intimacy with God, alignment to. Before I say this, I got to tell you that I used to think when I first started understanding this as a sequence, I used to think I wondered at that time. I wondered, does this sort of work at a certain level of business and industry, and then is there some point where this is no longer relevant because you've just gotten so successful and all the rest? But I used to think that way, but over the last sort of 5 years, as you know, by the grace of God, different level of people in the sense of finance and success have come into my world. I got to tell you, this is as true for the startup entrepreneur or the startup person as it is for the billionaire. Right? Like, I remember talking about this to one of a key partner of mine who's a billionaire, a Christian billionaire, and this is absolutely relevant for him. He's like, Dave, this is absolutely how it works. It just plays out at a different level. That's all that is, right? But the foundation is exactly the same. The fifth one is this. The fifth foundation is confidence in the favor of God. All right? And let me unpack this for just the last couple of minutes. Favor of God. So what happens is this, that if you're anyone that's watched social media and if you follow any sort of motivational guru, I'm talking about just in general, not a Christian one or whatever, or even some of the Christian ones, you'll hear a lot about hustle and grind. You'll hear a lot about, I don't know if you've heard about the 5 a.m. club. Just this thought about push and motivation and energy, and bounce off the walls and all the rest. And you know what? I believe in working hard. And I understand the dynamics of hustle and grind. I understand what it is to outwork the person next to you, right? Like I understand what that means in the marketplace and all the rest. But I'm 50 and I'm just too old. And my hustle isn't as hustle and my grind isn't. No, I actually got delivered from that because I operated for the first probably 20 years of business life in hustle and grind and asked God to bless it. And you know what? God in his mercy blessed it. But it's not his best. Right? Hustle and grind is, respectfully, is the arena that is the limitation for the uninitiated in God. It doesn't make it bad, it's limited. It's limited is all I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is there is an advantage for the sons and daughters of God. We go beyond hustle and grind. We're still conscientious. We still work hard. We're still thorough, all of that. But we go beyond hustle and grind, which is the attempt to attract to you what you need to be successful. And we cross over into the realm of favor, right, which no longer chases it, but draws it to you, right? The favor of God, listen to this, the favor of God is always on the will of God in your life. You don't have to pray for the favor of God in the will of God for your life. You don't have to beg God for it. All you do, if you're walking in deepening intimacy with God, in alignment to his assignment, his calling on your life and the season of that calling, that you're walking in holiness, accurate representation of him in communion with the Holy Spirit, you're passionate about hearing the voice of God and allowing that to be attuned, you can have confidence that the favor of God is going to meet you at each moment that is required to fulfill his will in your life. I don't sweat over favor. I used to think favor was like the lottery machine, like the jackpot machines, you know? It was like put a coin in, send a prayer up, hit a button, maybe we get the 3 bananas. Like maybe we get the jackpot. But more often than not, and just like I'm not a gambler, but my father used to be a gambler. I remember he took us once when we were young boys, me and my brother, to the RSL to play the pokies, and I got bored after 5 minutes. I said, Dad, this game's rigged. I said, it's rigged. It's taking my money. Like, I used to think favor was a lot like that. Well, maybe if I sent up 1,000 prayers, I might get 2 jackpots. Just think about how that conditions your brain to think about God. Could you imagine that? My kid has to ask me 1,000 times before I'd give him my favor 2 times. That's not God. That's religion, by the way. That's actually what religion teaches you. The favor of God always meets you at the point of the will of God in your life. It just is. So what do? Do we just sit back? No. I mean, there's an appropriation of favor, and that is confidence. That's confidence. I understand. Like I'm not going to stay up all night looking at the ceiling worrying. I've got to come into a posture of faith that says, God, I'm in your will. I'm in your purposes. I thank you. I understand. I believe that this is what you've assigned to my life. I'm entering into it. These 5 foundations, all over the world, my clients are all over the world, different industries, different streams of the body of Christ, conservative, Orthodox, Pentecostal, Catholic. These 5, they just work. They just, in a million different circumstances, these are the 5. If you're part of my private partnership group, I'm always going to teach you these 5. I'm going to champion them. Whether you're a business owner, whether you're a worker in a company, like this isn't just about business, it's about life. Deepening intimacy with Christ, alignment to his kingdom assignment in your life, holiness, accurate representation, passion, knowing the voice of God, discerning that. 5th, confidence in his favor. That's it. That's my session.